Appendix to Life and Times of Joseph Warren by Richard Frothingham. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. 1. The Suffolk Resolves. The following document is copied from the Essex Gazette of the 20th of September, 1774. At a meeting of the delegates of every town and district in the county of Suffolk on Tuesday the 6th of September at the house of Mr. Richard Woodward of Dedham, and by adjournment at the house of Mr. Daniel Vose of Milton on Friday the 9th instant, Joseph Palmer, Esquire, being chosen moderator, and William Thompson, Esquire, clerk, a committee was chosen to bring in a report to the convention, and the following, being several times read and put paragraph by paragraph, was unanimously voted, viz. Whereas the power but not the justice, the vengeance but not the wisdom of Great Britain, which of old persecuted, scourged, and exiled our fugitive parents from their native shores, now pursues us, their guiltless children, with unrelenting severity. And whereas this then savage and uncultivated desert was purchased by the toil and treasure, or acquired by the valor and blood, of those our venerable progenitors, who bequeathed to us the dear-bought inheritance, who consigned it to our care and protection, the most sacred obligations are upon us to transmit the glorious purchase, unfettered by power, unclogged with shackles, to our innocent and beloved offspring. On the fortitude, on the wisdom, and on the exertions of this important day is suspended the fate of this new world and of unborn millions. If a boundless extent of continents swarming with millions will tamely submit to live, move, and have their being at the arbitrary will of a licentious minister, they basely yield to voluntary slavery, and future generations shall load their memories with incessant execrations. On the other hand, if we arrest the hand which would ransack our pockets, if we disarm the parricide who points the dagger to our bosoms, if we nobly defeat that fatal edict which proclaims a power to frame laws for us in all cases whatsoever, thereby entailing the endless and numberless curses of slavery upon us, our heirs and their heirs forever, if we successfully resist that unparalleled usurpation of unconstitutional power, whereby our capital is robbed of the means of life, whereby the streets of Boston are thronged with military executioners, whereby our coasts are lined and harbors crowded with ships of war, whereby the charter of the colony, that sacred barrier against the encroachments of tyranny, is mutilated and in effect annihilated, whereby a murderous law is framed to shelter villains from the hands of justice, whereby that unalienable and inestimable inheritance which we derived from nature, the Constitution of Britain, which was covenanted to us in the charter of the province, is totally wrecked, annulled, and vacated. Posterity will acknowledge that virtue which preserved them free and happy, and while we enjoy the rewards and blessings of the faithful, the torrent of panegyric will roll down our reputations to that latest period, when the streams of time shall be absorbed in the abyss of eternity. Therefore, we have resolved, and do resolve, 1. That whereas His Majesty George III is the rightful successor to the throne of Great Britain, and justly entitled to the allegiance of the British realm and agreeable to compact of the English colonies in America, therefore we, the heirs and successors of the first planters of this colony, do cheerfully acknowledge the said George III to be our rightful sovereign, and that said covenant is the tenure and claim on which are founded our allegiance and submission. 2. That it is an indispensable duty which we owe to God, our country, ourselves, and posterity, by all lawful ways and means in our power, to maintain, defend, and preserve those civil and religious rights and liberties for which many of our fathers fought, bled, and died, and to hand them down entire to future generations. 3. that the late acts of the British Parliament for blocking up the harbor of Boston and for altering the established form of government in this colony and for screening the most flagitious violators of the laws of the province from a legal trial are the gross infractions of those rights to which we are justly entitled by the laws of nature, the British Constitution, and the Charter of the province. 4. That no obedience is due from this province to either or any part of the acts above mentioned, but that they may be rejected as the attempts of a wicked administration to enslave America. 5. That so long as the justices of our superior courts of judicature, courts of assize, and general gaol delivery, and inferior courts of common pleas in this country are appointed or hold their places by any other tenure than that which the charter and the laws of the province direct, they must be considered as under unique influence and are therefore unconstitutional officers, and as such no regard ought to be paid to them by the people of this country. 6. That if the justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, Court of Assize, etc., justices of the Court of Common Pleas, or of the General Sessions of the Peace, shall set and act during their present unqualified state, this country will support and bear harmless all sheriffs and their deputies, constables, jurors, and other officers who shall refuse to carry into execution the orders of said courts. And, as far as is possible to prevent the inconveniences that must attend the suspension of the courts of justice, we do earnestly recommend it to all creditors to exercise all reasonable and generous forbearance to their debtors, and to all debtors to discharge their just debts with all possible speed. And if any disputes concerning debts or trespasses should arise, which cannot be settled by the parties, we recommend it to them to submit all such causes to arbitration. And if the parties, or either of them, shall refuse so to do, they ought to be considered as cooperating with the enemies of this country. 7. That it be recommended to the collectors of taxes, constables, and all other officers who have public moneys in their hands, to retain the same, and not to make any payment thereof to the province or county treasurers until the civil government of the province is placed upon a constitutional foundation, or until it shall otherwise be ordered by the proposed provincial congress. 8. That the persons who have accepted seats at the council board by virtue of a mandamus from the king, in conformity to the late act of the British Parliament, entitled An Act for Regulating the Government of the Massachusetts Bay, have acted in direct violation of the duty they owe to their country, and have thereby given great and just offense to this people. Therefore, resolved, that this country do recommend it to all persons who have so highly offended by accepting said department, and have not already publicly resigned their seats at the council board, to make public resignations of their places at said board on or before the 20th day of this instant September, and that all persons neglecting so to do shall, from and after that day, be considered by this county as obstinate and incorrigible enemies to this colony. 9. That the fortifications begun and now carrying upon Boston Neck are justly alarming to this county, and give us reason to apprehend some hostile intention against that town, more especially as the Commander-in-Chief has in a very extraordinary manner removed the powder from the magazine at Charlestown, and has also forbidden the keeper of the magazine at Boston to deliver out to the owners of the powder which they lodged in said magazine. 10. That the late Act of Parliament for establishing the Roman Catholic religion and the French laws in that extensive country now called Canada is dangerous in an extreme degree to the Protestant religion and to the civil rights and liberties of all America, and therefore, as men and Protestant Christians, we are indispensably obliged to take all proper measures for our security. 11. that whereas our enemies have flattered themselves that they shall make an easy prey of this numerous, brave, and hardy people, from an apprehension that they are unacquainted with military discipline, we therefore, for the honor, defense, and security of this country and province, advise, as it has been recommended, to take away all commissions from the officers of the militia, that those who now hold commissions, or such other persons, be elected in each town as officers in the militia as shall be judged of sufficient capacity for that purpose, and who have evidenced themselves the inflexible friends to the rights of the people, and that the inhabitants of those towns and districts who are qualified do use their utmost diligence to acquaint themselves with the art of war as soon as possible, and do for that purpose appear under arms at least once every week. 12. That during the present hostile appearances on the part of Great Britain, notwithstanding the many insults and oppressions which we must sensibly resent, yet, nevertheless, from our affection to His Majesty, which we have at all times evidenced, we are determined to act merely upon the defensive, so long as such conduct may be vindicated by reason and the principles of self-preservation, but no longer. 13. That, as we understand, it has been in contemplation to apprehend sundry persons of this county who have rendered themselves conspicuous in contending for the violated rights and liberties of their countrymen, we do recommend that, should such an audacious measure be put in practice, to seize and keep in safe custody every servant of the present tyrannical and unconstitutional government throughout the county and province, until the persons so apprehended be liberated from the hands of our adversaries and restored safe and uninjured to their respective friends and families. 14. That, until our rights are fully restored to us, we will, to the utmost of our power, and recommend the same to the other counties, withhold all commercial intercourse with Great Britain, Ireland, and the West Indies, and abstain from the consumption of British merchandise and manufactures, and especially of East India teas and peace goods, with such additions, alterations, and exceptions only as the Grand Congress of the Colonies may agree to. 15. That, under our present circumstances, it is incumbent on us to encourage arts and manufactures amongst us by all means in our power, and that Joseph Palmer, Esquire of Braintree, Mr. Ebenezer Dorr of Roxbury, Mr. James Boys and Mr. Edward Preston of Milton, and Mr. Nathaniel Guild of Walpole, be and hereby are appointed a committee to consider the best ways and means to promote and establish the same, and report to this convention as soon as may be. 16. That the exigencies of our public affairs demand that a provincial congress be called to concert such measures as may be adopted and vigorously executed by the whole people, and we do recommend it to several towns in this county to choose members for such a provincial congress, to be holden at Concord on the second Tuesday of October next ensuing. 17. That this county, confiding in the wisdom and integrity of the Continental Congress now sitting at Philadelphia, will pay all due respect and submission to such measures as may be recommended by them to the colonies for the restoration and establishment of our just rights, civil and religious, and for renewing that harmony and union between Great Britain and the colonies, so earnestly wished for by all good men. 18. Whereas the universal uneasiness which prevails among all orders of men, arising from the wicked and oppressive measures of the present administration, may influence some unthinking persons to commit outrage upon private property, we would heartily recommend to all persons of this community not to engage in any routs, riots, or licentious attacks upon the properties of any person whatsoever, as being subversive of all order and government, but by a steady, manly, uniform, and persevering opposition to convince our enemies that, in a contest so important, in a cause so solemn, our conduct shall be such as to merit the approbation of the wise and the admiration of the brave and free of every age and of every country. 19. That should our enemies, by any sudden maneuvers, render it necessary for us to ask the aid and assistance of our brethren in the country, some one of the Committee of Correspondence or a selectman of such town, or the town adjoining, where such hostilities shall commence or shall be expected to commence, shall dispatch couriers with written messages to the selectmen or committees of correspondence of the several towns in the vicinity, with a written account of such matter, who shall dispatch others to committees or selectmen more remote, till proper and sufficient assistance be obtained, and that the expense of said couriers be defrayed by the county until it shall be otherwise ordered by the Provincial Congress. Voted, that Joseph Warren, Esquire, and Dr. Benjamin Church of Boston, Deacon Joseph Palmer, and Colonel Ebenezer Thayer of Braintree, Captain Lemuel Robinson, William Holden, Esquire, and Captain John Homans of Dorchester, Captain William Heath of Roxbury, Colonel William Taylor and Dr. Samuel Gardner of Milton, Isaac Gardner, Esquire, Captain Benjamin White and Captain Thomas Aspinwall of Brookline, Nathaniel Sumner, Esquire, and Mr. Richard Woodward of Dedham, be a committee to wait on His Excellency the Governor, to inform him that this county are alarmed at the fortifications making on Boston Neck, and to remonstrate against the same, and the repeated insults offered by the soldiery to persons passing and repassing into that town, and to confer with him upon those subjects. Attest, William Thompson, Clerk. 2. Eulogies on Warren. The New England Chronicle of the 22nd of June, 1775, contained a brief account on the Battle of Bunker Hill, but did not mention the death of Warren. The next issue, on the 29th, contained the following. On Saturday, the 17th of June, 1775, fell in battle in the American Army Major General Joseph Warren, a gentleman worthy that office, to which the day before, by the free votes of his countrymen, he was honorably elected. As a friend to Britain, he wished the mutual happiness of her and America, and conscious their interests were inseparable, he strenuously opposed the unjust claims of a venal parliament, who attempted to ruin the latter by depriving them of their rights, sacred by charter. Twice to crowded audiences, he wailed the fate of those massacred March 5, 1770, and twice received the thanks of his fellow citizens therefor. To enumerate his virtues would be a subject worthy of an abler pen. Sufficient for us, we add, he by them has laid the foundation of a fame that shall not be impaired by the tooth of time. Over his grave his mourning of countrymen may justly say, Here lies the body of a worthy man, whose name shall live and fill the world with wonder. Although his ashes scarcely fill an urn, his virtues shall remain when we have left the stage. His praises shall be spoke for many an age to come. The Pennsylvania Magazine for June 1775, printed in Philadelphia, has an eulogium on Warren, which is said to have been supplied by a gentleman of that city. It was copied into the Boston Gazette. The following is an extract. It is impossible to do justice to his full-orbed character. He filled each of the numerous departments of life that were assigned to him so well that he seemed born for no other. He had displayed in the course of 33 years all the talents and virtues of the man, the patriot, the senator, and the hero. He was unlike the Spartan general only in not expiring in the arms of victory. But even in this unfortunate event he has served his country, for he has taught the sons of freedom in America that the laurel may be engrafted upon the cypress, and that true glory may be acquired not only in the arms of victory, but in the arms of death. The Pennsylvania Packet of July 3, 1775, had the following eulogium, which I copy from the Massachusetts Spy, or American Oracle of Liberty, on the 26th of July, 1775. An elegy to the memory of Dr. Warren. Warren, the learned, brave, and good, amiable and esteemed in his private character, admired and applauded in his more public sphere. He was an eminent physician, a sincere and affectionate friend, and a faithful, undaunted asserter of his country's rights, in defense of which he nobly fell with a true magnanimity and heroism of soul, becoming the great cause in which he struggled, and which he did honor to the dignity of the station in which his country had a few days before placed him. He's gone. Great Warren's soul from earth is fled. Great Warren's name is numbered with the dead. That breast where every patriot virtue glowed, that form where nature every grace bestowed, that tongue which bade in freedom's cause combine truth, learning, sense, and eloquence divine, that healing hand which raised the drooping head, which led pale sickness from her languid bed, are now no more, all wrapped in sacred fire, on liberty's exalted shrine expire. While the great spirit which the whole informed glowed in the breast and every feature warmed, mounts midst the flame to its own native heaven, where angels' plaudits to his deeds are given. Methinks I see the solemn pomp ascend, see every patriot shade his soul attend. Immortal Hampden leads the awful band, and near him Raleigh, Russell, Sidney stand. With them each Roman, every Greek whose name glows high recorded in the roll of fame. Round Warren press, and hail with glad applause this early victim in fair freedom's cause. With generous hearts the laurel crown they twine, and round his brows they bind the wreath divine. O glorious fate, which bids the gloomy grave throw wide the gates of triumph to the brave. Sure, godlike Warren, on thy natal hour, some star propitious shed its brightest power. By nature's hand with taste, with genius formed, thy generous breast with every virtue warmed, thy mind endowed with sense, thy form with grace, and all thy virtues printed in thy face. Grave wisdom marked thee as his favorite child, and on thy youth indulgent science smiled. Well pleased, she led thee to her sacred bower, and to thy hands consigned her healing power. Still more to bless thee, soothing friendship strove, and bade thee share in Adams Hancock's love. With them united in great freedom's cause, thou stoodest the brave asserter of her laws, while, ever watchful for thy country's weal, no arts could warp, no dangers damp thy zeal. Thy grateful country, to thy virtues just, to thee committed each important trust. Called thee o'er all her counsels to preside, and midst this storm the helm of state to guide. Equal to all, alike in all thou shined, the patriot, friend, and counselor combined. Heaven saw thy virtues to perfection soar, till nature failed, and earth could bear no more. Approving saw and burst the bonds of clay, which stage thy passage to the realms of day, and that in death might to thy fame conspire, bade thee on freedom's glorious field expire. Allow thee once to mingle in the strife, that thou mightest give thy country's even thy life. Bade liberty and honor guard thy grave, and countless thousands for thy mourners gave. And dare we then thy sacred triumphs mourn, or with the fear of grief profane thy urn? Illustrious shade, forgive our mingled woes, which not for thee, but for our country flows. We mourn her loss, we mourn her hero gone, we mourn thy patriot soul, thy godlike virtues flown. But oh, from yon bright realms vouchsafe to bend on us thy looks, and to our fate attend. Thy country's guardian angel deign to prove, and watch around us with thy wonted love. Still o'er our counsels may thy soul preside, thy light direct us, and thy genius guide. Let thy great spirit glow in every breast, and be thy virtue on each heart impressed. So shalt thou not alone in glory stand, and other warrens shall adorn our land. The following lines were printed on a broadside and are copied from the Historical Magazine for April 1861. Lines. Sacred to the memory of Joseph Warren, who fell in the battle at Charlestown fighting gallantly for his country. Such their care for all the great, whensoe'er they meet their fate. Shades heroic throng around, pleased to tend the expiring ground, pleased to mark the favored place where they end their glorious race. Round the turf or grassy sod, palms with yews they learn to nod. There by silent Luna's rays, oft the funeral dirge they raise. So on some appointed hill, heaven last mandate to fulfill, when with blood they seal their cause, die to save their country's laws. Joyed at such a nameless sight, countless worthies quick alight, wrapped in soft celestial flames, stepping to sublimest strains. Thus in solemn pomp they rove, there admire a brother's love. As the mystic march goes round, all the neighboring vales resound. Thus when Warren late was slain, passing mourners heard them plain. Catos, Hamptons, Sidneys, come, ye of Britain, Greece, or Rome. Ye for justice, who did plead, ye for freedom, who did bleed. Quit a while thy Elysian land, join in one harmonic band. Come install a hero new, who deserves to rank with you. Bring the laurel leaf along, swell the chorus with conqueror song. Fix upon his head the crown, for he's worthy of renown. He for justice boldly pled, he for freedom nobly bled. Take him to our seats above, there proclaim his generous love. Tell how oft earth's senates rung, charmed by his mellifluous tongue. Tell how oft his patriot zeal strove to save the British weal. Midnight vigils how he kept, all his ease and interest left. Greatly firm in virtue's cause, sworn to oppose tyrannic laws. Though his form divinely fair, though most graceful every air, though in healing great his skill, though most kind his constant will, though his social virtues great, though they shone from early date, not with those the patriot flame must we now pretend to name. These are all beneath the strains, due to heroes' spouting veins. Northern blasts he'd never feared, nor in princely guilt revered. Prostituted force he scorned, slavery myrmidons he spurned. Bravely bent to meet the foe, dealing death in every blow. Great in ruin when he fell, proud to die, he cried, "'Tis well." Dying patriots, now we sing, jointly touch the highest string. Jointly all your powers devote, blow for them the highest note. Earth can nothing greater boast, dying patriot is her most. Heaven can nothing greater know, in where fires seraphic glow. Worthy such of angels' praise, such should have divinest lays. Fair America is blessed, hence arose our welcome guest. She such sons shall never want, nor shall tyrants such e'er daunt. Scorching flames and fields of blood, all shall work the greatest good. Slavery clanks her chains in vain, despots there shall never reign. Yet fair liberty shall stand, yet shall away that happy land. Yet her godlike sons shall rest, of their birthrights still possessed. They the world throughout shall save, they shall make the timid brave. Though their present peace is marred, though their future struggle hard, Britain's sons, degenerate grown, for their folly yet shall mourn. Grieved their ancient sires look down, curse their measures, give a frown. Swear the glory is transferred, young America's preferred. Heaven is fixed her ardent friend, she shall see a glorious end. Long in bliss her sons shall reign, till their native skies they gain. Join orchestras chant Amen, quite o'erwhelmed with swooning joy, so ecstatic such employ. Passing mourners, waking found, neither shades nor faintest sound. Hear ye sons of freedom here, banish hence your every fear. Trust for once a prophecy, know the period draweth nigh. B.B. Providence, July 27th, 1775. Dr. Solomon Downes sent the following lines in a letter addressed to his brother, William Downe, and dated Providence, Rhode Island, August 12, 1775, which are copied from the Historical Magazine for March 1861. And is it so? Is Warren then no more? Alas, too true? He's gone, my patriots' warriors gone. New Albion's genius cried, and he is gone. Remembered all around, heart-rending thought. How sunk my spirits when the baleful sound first shocked mine ear. But why bewail a death so glorious, which might rather in our breasts excite becoming envy? Yes, he fell, a willing sacrifice in the great cause of humankind, his country's cause, which he had pledged so well, heroic fortitude, an honest zeal, a Scipio's martial flame, a Cato's firmness, Tully's eloquence, were all his own, thus great in public life, nor less the milder virtues of his soul. Philanthropy his generous bosom swayed, beneficence marked well the steps he trod. View him in the sphere of his profession, see at the sick bedside his anxious care. With countenance benign, see him stretch forth his healing hand to yield the kind relief. If medicines failed, his gentle accents and his soothing words revived the fainting heart. But silent now that tongue, and cold that hand, so oft employed in heavenly deeds like these. That tongue that moved at will the attentive throng, that hand to dire distress a cheerful aid. Warren, the great, the good, is now no more. He's left this earth to hail those blessed abodes, where north shall vex not, and the virtuous rest. Philatros. The following ode has been ascribed to Arthur Lee. I copy from the American Museum, Volume 5, 1790. Ode to the memory of Dr. Joseph Warren, the celebrated orator, who was slain upon the heights of Charlestown fighting for the liberties of America on the 17th day of June, 1775. O great reverse of Tully's coward heart, immortal Warren, you suffice to teach, the orator may fill the warrior's part, and active souls be joined with fluent speech. Shall not the speaker, who alone could give immortal reviscience to the dead, change to a hero now, forever live in fame's eternal roll with those he led? Let North and Sandwich take the meaner shame of blustering words unknown to hardy deeds, and callous God, superior merit calm, in grinning laughter while his country bleeds. Boston's first sons in prostrate numbers lay, and freedom tottered on destruction's brink. Warren stepped forth to solemnize the day, and dared to speak what some scarce dared to think. Yet glorious honor, more than one man's share, he in his latest, as in his earliest breath, in camp or forum equally could dare, and seal his bold Philippic with his death. Lucius. 3. Children of Warren. The 4 children of Warren, on the death of their mother, Everett's Warren, 179, were committed to the care of their maternal grandmother. Their names were Elizabeth, Joseph, Mary, and Richard. A name made illustrious was their only inheritance, Sparks' Life of Arnold, 126. Immediately after their father's death, the Masonic fraternity contributed liberally to their necessities, Moore's Masonic Memoir of Warren, 118. On the 31st of January, 1777, on the motion of Samuel Adams, Congress resolved that the eldest son should be educated at the expense of the United States. He says, February 1, 1777, in a letter to James Warren, I moved in Congress that the eldest son of our deceased friend, General Warren, might be adopted by the continent and educated at the public expense. The motion was pleasing to all, and a committee was appointed to prepare a resolve. These things I would not have yet made public. About the month of April, 1778, General Arnold, who made the acquaintance of Warren in Cambridge, was informed that the children had been entirely neglected by the state, when, in a letter dated July 15, 1778, addressed to Miss Mercy Scully, the greater portion of which is printed, Sparks, Arnold, 127, he contributed $500 for their support and expressed generous sentiments for their welfare. Warren was betrothed to this lady for a second wife, Loring's Orators, 49. In another letter addressed to Dr. Townsend, dated August 6, 1778, printed in The Life of John C. Warren, II 56, Arnold expresses similar sentiments. In the next year, there was additional correspondence on the care of the children. A letter addressed to Samuel Adams and John Hancock on the 19th of November, 1779, by Elbridge Gerry and James Lovell elicited the following. Boston, December 20th, 1779. Gentlemen, since my last letter to you, I have had an opportunity of conversing with Dr. John Warren, brother of our deceased friend, concerning the situation of his children. He tells me that the eldest son was, as early as that could be done, put under the care and tuition of the Reverend Mr. Payson of Chelsea, a gentleman whose qualifications for the instructing of youth I need not mention to you. The lad still remains with them. The eldest daughter, a miss of about 13, is with the doctor, and he assures me that no gentleman's daughter in this town has more of the advantage of schools than she has at his expense. She learns music, dancing, writing, and arithmetic, and the best needlework that is taught here. The doctor, I dare say, takes good care of her morals. The 2 younger children, a boy of about 7 years and a girl somewhat older, are in the family of John Scully, Esquire, under the particular care of his daughter, at her most earnest request. Otherwise, I suppose, they would have been taken care of by their relations at Roxbury and educated as farmers' children usually are. Miss Scully deserves the greatest praise for her attention to them. She is exceedingly well qualified for her charge, and her affection for their deceased father prompts her to exert her utmost to inculcate in the minds of these children those principles which may conduce to render them worthy of the relation they stood in to him. General Arnold has assisted by generously ordering $500 towards their support. This I was informed of when I was last in Philadelphia. I called on him and thanked him for his kindness to them. Whether he has done more for them since, I cannot say. Probably he originated the subscription you have mentioned to me. I have omitted to tell you that 2 years ago I was in this town and made a visit to the present General Warren at Plymouth. His lady was very solicitous that the eldest daughter should spend the winter with her and desired me to propose it to Miss. I did so, but I could not prevail upon her. She said that Mrs. Miller, Mr. Charles Miller's lady, at whose house she then was, did not incline to part with her, and that it would be a breach of good manners and ungrateful for her to leave Mrs. Miller against her inclination. She very prettily expressed her obligations to both those ladies, and thus prevented my saying any more. I am very certain it was Mrs. Warren's intention to give her board and education. You know the distinguished accomplishments of that lady. I think it does not appear that Betsy has been altogether friendless and deserted, or that the others are in danger of suffering irreparably on account of their education. Yet, as I am very desirous that they should have the greatest advantage in their growth into life, I shall, among other friends, think myself much obliged to any gentleman who, from pure and unmixed motives, shall add to those which they now enjoy. I have not yet had the honor of an interview with Mr. since I sent him the letter which you wrote to us jointly, and requested his sentiments thereon. Adieu, my dear friends, and believe me to be, respectfully yours, Samuel Adams. Honorable Elbridge, Gerry, and James Lovell, Esquires. General Arnold applied to Congress for a provision to support the children. On the 1st of July, 1780, is the following record. On motion of Mr. Livingston, seconded by Mr. Adams, Congress came to the following resolutions. Whereas Congress have thought proper to erect a monument to the memory of Major General Warren in consideration of his distinguished merit and bravery, and to make provision for the education of his eldest son, and whereas it appears no adequate provision can be made out of his private fortune for the education and maintenance of his 3 younger children, therefore, resolved, that it be recommended to the Executive of Massachusetts Bay to make provision for the maintenance and education of the said 3 children of the late Major General Warren. Resolved, that Congress will defray the expense thereof to the amount of the half pay of a Major General to commence at the time of his death and continue until the youngest of the said children shall be of age. General Warren, Sparks says, Life of Arnold, 128, had been dead 5 years, and the annual amount of half pay was somewhat more than $1,300, making the sum due nearly $7,000, besides the future stipend. In the congratulatory letter which Arnold wrote to Miss Scully on this event, only 6 weeks before the consummation of his treachery, he reiterated his ardent concern for the welfare of the children. Dr. John Warren, the general's youngest brother, on his marriage took the children to his home, Everett's Warren, 179. Both the daughters were distinguished by amiable qualities and personal beauty, and were highly accomplished. Elizabeth, born in 1765, became in 1785 the wife of General Arnold Wells, died without issue in Boston July 26, 1804, at 39 years of age, and was buried from her residence in School Street. Joseph was born in 1768, graduated at Harvard College in 1786, was an officer at the castle, and died while on a visit to Foxborough at the house of his uncle Ebenezer. The following is the inscription on his tombstone. Sacred to the memory of Joseph Warren, son of the late Major General Joseph Warren, who died suddenly April 2, 1790, age 22. Be ye also ready. Mary was twice married. Her first husband was Mr. Lyman of Northampton. She lost all her children by this marriage, Mrs. Payne's letter. Her second husband was Judge Richard E. Newcomb of Greenfield, Mass., who, in a letter dated April 14, 1843, says, My late wife Mary was the youngest and only surviving child of the late General J. Warren. She died on February 7, 1826, leaving an only child, a son, who bears the name of his grandfather, Joseph Warren. He is an attorney at law and now lives at Springfield in this state. He, with the exception of his 2 children, is the only descendant in a direct line of him who fell on Bunker Hill. Both of these children are 1865 living. One is the wife of Dr. Buckminster Brown and resides in Boston. Richard, according to the letter of S. Adams, born about 1772, was engaged in a mercantile business in Alexandria. Mrs. Payne's letter in Life of J.C. Warren, II 24, returned to Boston and died in the family of his uncle, Dr. John Warren, at the age of 21. 4. Relics of Warren. I have seen several interesting relics of Warren, which were procured and preserved by the late Dr. John C. Warren. One is the manuscript of the oration which he delivered on the 6th of March, 1775. It is in a black cover and is in a large, round handwriting. It has few interlineations. Another relic is a small psalm book, which a British soldier said that he took out of Warren's pocket, and as such sold it to Dr. Samuel Wilton of London, who sent it to Dr. William Gordon with the request that it should be delivered to Warren's relatives. It was printed at Geneva in 1559. On the inside cover is written, "North America, taken at ye Battle of Bunker Hill, June 17, 1775, out of Dr. Warren's pocket." The name, Thomas Knight, is written at the end of the volume. These relics, with a sword, which was owned by Warren, are in the possession of Dr. J. Mason Warren, who has also Warren's daybook, containing entries by him from May 4, 1774 to April 17, 1775. I have mentioned on page 167 that there are fragments of a prior daybook. These books show Warren's professional connection with the families of the popular leaders. At the celebration of June 17, 1836, in Charlestown, Honorable A. H. Everett exhibited the bullet which he regarded as the one that killed Warren. See Loring's 100 Boston Orators, page 67. The Historical Magazine of December 1857 has an interesting paper by Mr. Loring on the relics of Warren. 5. Monuments to Warren. The Massachusetts House of Representatives on the 4th of April, 1776, in giving the Lodge of Freemasons leave to bury the remains of Warren, reserved a right to erect a monument to his memory, and on the 12th of February, 1818, it ordered a committee to consider the expediency of building a monument of American marble, but the right remains unexercised. The Continental Congress on the 31st of January, 1777, on the motion of Samuel Adams, appointed Messrs. Rush, Hayward, Page, and S. Adams a committee to consider what honors are due to the memory of General Warren, who submitted their report on the 8th of April, 1777, when Congress voted. That a monument be erected to the memory of General Warren in the town of Boston with the following inscription: in honor of Joseph Warren, Major General of Massachusetts Bay. He devoted his life to the liberties of his country, and, in bravely defending them, fell, an early victim in the Battle of Bunker Hill, June 17, 1775. The Congress of the United States, as an acknowledgment of his services and distinguished merit, have erected this monument to his memory. Though it stands in the Journals of Congress that a monument was erected, see the vote on page 544, and in 1850 a memorial was presented in the Senate for an appropriation for a statue, the vote remains, like a similar one in relation to Washington, without effect. The honor of raising a memorial to Warren on the spot where he fell belongs to King Solomon's Lodge of Masons of Charlestown. It was chartered by the Massachusetts Grand Lodge, which was established by Warren. The charter was not granted until the 6th of September, 1783, More's Memoir, 122. This lodge, November 11th, 1794, appointed a committee to erect such a monument in Mr. Russell's pasture, which was on what is now called Breed's Hill, as would do honor to the lodge in memory of their late brother, M. W. Joseph Warren, and drew upon the treasury for the expense. Honorable James Russell gave the land for this purpose. The committee caused to be erected a Tuscan pillar 18 feet in height, built of wood, placed on a brick pedestal 8 feet square and 10 feet high. On the top was a gilt urn on which, with Masonic emblems, were the words J.W. The south side of the pedestal contained this inscription: erected A.D. 1794 by King Solomon's Lodge of Freemasons, constituted in Charlestown, 1783, in memory of Major General Joseph Warren and his associates, who were slain on this memorable spot June 17, 1775. None but they who set a just value upon the blessings of liberty are worthy to enjoy her. In vain we toiled, in vain we fought, we bled in vain, if you, our offspring, want valor to repel the assaults of her invaders. Charlestown settled 1628, burnt 1775, rebuilt 1776. The enclosed land was given by Honorable James Russell. This monument cost about $1,000. It was dedicated on the 2nd of December, 1794, when a procession consisting of the Masonic fraternity, the municipal authorities, revolutionary officers, children of the schools, and citizens was formed at Warren Hall and walked in solemn silence to the hill, when a circle was formed round the pillar and John Soley delivered an address, in which he termed the hill Mount Warren. The procession returned to Warren Hall, where a eulogy was pronounced by Dr. Hosea Bartlett. The memorial reflected great credit on King Solomon's Lodge. This monument stood on the ground which is now Concord Street, a few rods from the present structure, and was kept in repair by King Solomon's Lodge until 1825, when it was presented with the land to the Bunker Hill Monument Association. King Solomon's Lodge, in 1845, procured an exact model of the pillar, one of the finest Italian marble, which was executed by one of the best American artists, and was placed within the obelisk. This was dedicated with imposing Masonic ceremonial. On this occasion, one of the speakers was the Venerable John Soley, who presented the working tools to the Grand Master. The model bears the following inscription: "This is an exact model of the first monument erected on Bunker Hill, which, with the land on which it stood, was given, A.D. 1825, by King Solomon's Lodge of this town to the Bunker Hill Monument Association, that they might erect upon its site a more imposing structure. The association, in fulfillment of a pledge at that time given, have allowed, within their imperishable obelisk, this model to be inserted, with appropriate ceremonies, by King Solomon's Lodge, June 24th, A.D. 1845. At a meeting of the Bunker Hill Monument Association on 1st of July, 1850, Colonel Thomas Handasad Perkins tendered $1,000 towards a monument in honor of Warren when a committee decided upon a statue, which it was first designed to place in Faneuil Hall. Other subscriptions having been made, a statue was executed by Henry Dexter, a native artist, and, on its completion, it was determined to place it on the battlefield. The heirs of John C. Warren now contributed the splendid pedestal of verd antique on which the statue stands, and a building was built for its reception. The statue is 7 feet high, of the best Italian marble, and weighed in the block about 7 tons. It is draped in the costume of the Revolutionary period. The right hand rests upon a sword, the left being raised as in the act of giving emphasis to his utterance. The chest is thrown out, the head, which is uncovered, is elevated, and upon the broad brow and the firm manly features of the face, thought and soul are unmistakably stamped. Cambridge Chronicle, June 6, 1857. This statue was dedicated on the 17th of June, 1857, with magnificent ceremonies, an account of which is contained in a volume entitled Inauguration of the Statue of Warren by the Bunker Hill Monument Association. One of the speakers, Henry J. Gardner, governor of Massachusetts, said, on the battleground, "This mighty multitude has assembled, women and men, the statesman, the soldier, the orator, the citizen, those placed in authority, these various benevolent and fraternal associations all, the old, the young, of every calling and every station, to aid by their presence and their sympathy in doing honor to the patriot and the martyr by dedicating the statue of General Joseph Warren." This occasion was emphatically national in its character. Warren was also eulogized on the great day, 1825, of laying the cornerstone of the Bunker Hill Monument, when Lafayette was present and sat among 200 veterans of the Revolution, of whom 40 were survivors of the battle. Daniel Webster then uttered before them the following apostrophe: "But him, the first great martyr in this great cause, him, the premature victim of his own self-devoting heart, him, the head of our civil councils and the destinied leader of our military bands, whom nothing brought hither but the unquenchable fire of his own spirit, him, cut off by Providence in the honor of overwhelming anxiety and thick gloom, falling ere he saw the star of his country rise, pouring out his generous blood like water before he knew whether it would fertilize a land of freedom or of bondage. How shall I struggle with the emotions that stifle the utterance of thy name? Our poor work may perish, but thine shall endure. This monument may molder away, the solid ground it rests upon may sink down to a level with the sea, but thy memory shall not fail. Wheresoever among men a heart shall be found that beats to the transports of patriotism and liberty, its aspirations shall be to claim kindred with thy spirit." End of Appendix. Read by Robert Morel. End of Life and Times of Joseph Warren by Richard Frothingham.